The first shot. You heard the news? Brendan asked, the excitement obvious in his voice. Course I have. We got 18 votes, I hear. Di sighed theatrically and rolled his eyes to emphasize his disappointment. I'd like to find whoever those 2 priests were and shake their hands. It's good to know 2 of them have got their heads screwed on right. You still reckon it's a mistake, then? Brendan asked. I dunno, the old guide replied definitely. You don't know? Brendan queried, shocked. He'd known Di for 20 years, and in all that time he'd never known the priest not have an opinion about everything. You seemed pretty certain before the summit. Why go to all that trouble of sending them your mandate in if you don't know? Because I don't know. Look, everyone wants to fight the Valorn. We're Navarre, we've all sworn oaths to defeat the Valorn. The question wasn't, do you want to fight the Valorn? You can't be Navarre if you don't want to fight the Valorn. The question was whether this is the right time to fight the Valorn. And I don't know the answer to that question. Everyone voted for it. They must be pretty certain we can do it. Di Summers hocked and spat in contempt. For a few moments he stood in silence, gathering his thoughts. Look, I've read every word written down in Hinia. There is no way anyone can know whether this is going to work or not. And that's my point. I don't know. Nobody does. They say all knowledge is incomplete, but I'd like to have been a lot more certain of victory before we all bet the steading on it. You don't think we'll win then? Brendan said, a note of concern in his voice. We might. I've got hope, same as everyone else does. But hope isn't a virtue. Hope won't beat the Valorn. We need armies for that. We need allies. We need a lot of things we don't have enough of yet. We'd better find them, and quick. We voted with our hearts. Well, fine. What's done is done. But if we fight with our hearts, we lose. And if we lose, then everyone loses. If the Empire loses, then we lose the Empire. All of it. Fine way to keep our oaths that will be. Brendan pondered that for a moment. It was hard to imagine anything could destroy the Empire, but then he remembered the Valorn destroyed Teruniel. So what do we do? He asked. Di Summers grinned at his old friend. Well, we'd better do everything we can to make damn sure we don't lose, hadn't we? Overview. At the summer solstice, the Navarre took the pivotal decision to begin the final battle against the Valorn. Following the publication of the research on the Valorn, the leaders of the nation were faced with 2 distinct choices. Either wait for the right opportunity and use the next decade to build up their strength in readiness, or seize the moment and commit the entire nation to war. Link up the Valorn and let the final fight begin. Arguments raged. There were plenty of Navarre who felt the risk of disaster was simply too great. If the Valorn begin to expand and the Empire doesn't have the strength to stop them, if they aren't in a position to overcome the monsters of the Spring Realm, then everything the Navarre nation have worked for since the fall of Teruniel will be lost. The centuries walking the trods will all have been for nothing. The Empire will be destroyed just as Teruniel was destroyed all those years ago. Surely they owed it to Navarre and Thorn, to the generations of Navarre that followed them, to do everything possible to build up the Navarre's strength before beginning this final war. In the end, the decision of the Navarre Assembly was overwhelming, with the greater majority of priests voting to march to war. After centuries of waiting, the nation would grasp the nettle. Thanks to the work done by the Vates and their allies, the nation knows what needs to be done. All that is needed is for the scouts to locate the right opportunities to take the fateful steps to begin the last battle. There can be no going back from such a decision. The Wintermarkers would say that the Navarre have forked their skein. There can be no return from this, but the war will only begin when the Trod network is complete. It seems like there is a lot of work to do first. Going home. News of the Navarre Assembly's decision spreads slowly but inexorably across the Empire, as word travels from one Navarre striding to another. The Navarre commitment to walking the Trods is a fundamental part of the oath they swear to weaken the Valorn. For centuries, the Stridings have used the Trods to bleed the Valorn, weakening it with each step they take. Now, as the enormity of the decision dawns on people, they realise that their long travail is finally at an end. It seems like it is time for the Stridings to return home. Some return filled with excitement, open to the extraordinary possibilities to come. Some make the journey with trepidation, worried about what will happen next. All are welcomed with open arms, even as the numbers swell beyond anything the steadings can contain. Every wayhouse is packed, every steading has people sleeping on floors. But the steadings, too, are changing. The idea that after generations spent trying to hold the line against the Valorn, the time has finally come to take the fight to the enemy is electrifying. Many are swept up by the new possibilities that are opening up, and some are even beginning to talk about what may come afterwards, when the Valorn is defeated. Not every Striding chooses to return. Some still have work to do on the Trods, letters to deliver, people to visit. Some are unconvinced by the mandate, questioning the wisdom of it. Better to stick to what is known to work. Others are more cynical, suspecting that those who rush home now will find they have a long wait before the fighting begins. But the bulk of those who continue to walk the Trods do so with new purpose. What the Navarre need now more than ever is allies for the war to come. What better way to get them than to walk the world in search of friends? The idea of acting as ambassadors for the nation, continuing to carry letters and news across the Empire, but using those contacts to drum up support for the nation, gives new purpose to many who want to continue walking the Trods. Most of those who are returning head for either Miin, Hinia, or Therin. They are taking lodgings in wayhouses and steadings as they wait for orders on where to go to begin preparing for the coming war. As a result of this vast influx of eager recruits, the maximum number of armies the nation can support has doubled to 6. The Navarre can now raise up to 3 additional armies, 1 in each of these 3 territories. People are eager to fight, but they will need equipment and training. Raising an army takes time, and it is not clear yet how much time the Navarre will have, nor how much mithril the Empire will spare. If there is not visible signs of an army being raised, then those Navarre who are currently waiting to join up will be forced to make other arrangements. They won't return to walking the Trods, at least not yet, but they will find permanent accommodation, look for work, and settle down in the steadings. As a result, the Navarre army cap will decrease by 1 if they have not begun raising at least 1 new army by the end of the summit on the spring equinox 387 YE. The number of armies Navarre can support will continue to decline by 1 for each year after that in which they do not successfully raise a new army, until there is no spare capacity left. Preparation. Raising new armies will be difficult. The upkeep of the new armies will have severe implications for the Imperial Treasury, and there is the small matter of 600 wains of mithril and 225 thrones to be found first. The Navarre will need extensive support, both political and financial, from other nations in the Empire to have any hope of raising these armies. Each army will need the approval of the Senate. Each will need to be paid for. Some of the other national assemblies have expressed support for the Navarre, but they may need to raise armies of their own. There is absolutely no possibility of any kind of the Navarre being able to fight the Valorn alone, even if they raised every army they could. Once the Trods are joined up, virtually every nation in the Empire is going to be attacked by the Valorn, with a force so powerful that it completely overwhelmed the ancient empire of Teruniel. The Valorn has often been seen as a Navarre problem, but that will end. It is going to become everyone's problem. And not just the Empire. The Valorn in the north, on the border between Otkadov and Varushka, will threaten the Thule just as much as it threatens the north. The heart in Liathavan will be a huge problem for the Jotun. The Druj may be able to contain the Valorn heart in the Sarangrave, but the Aksu don't remotely have the armies needed to defend themselves against an all-out assault. It is difficult to see how Axos can possibly survive the eruption of the heart in Visakuma, which is reputed to be the largest and most powerful of all the Valorn hearts. Unless something can be done, it will scythe through their citadels like a knife through butter. Whatever happens, the Navarre will need every soldier they can call on to have even a hope of winning. Hence, attention turns to the prospects for raising armies in each of the 3 Navarre territories where one could now be mustered. Hinia. Hinia is the only Navarre territory that includes substantial mountains containing significant deposits of valuable metals. The forges at Treji were abandoned years ago when the area was overrun by the Thule, and countless Navarre artisans were enslaved and taken north to serve the dragons in Otkadov. With the return of these smiths, the forges are slowly being restored to their former glory, and Treji is becoming a hub of activity once more. Any army raised in Hinia is likely to reflect these long traditions. It will include significant numbers of skilled artisans among the ranks. In addition, the presence of so many artisans in the area presents a valuable opportunity. Treji is just one of a number of centres for skilled artisans in the north. Neighbouring Hanmark and Skarsind are both home to some of the most skilled smiths in the Empire. The Ethengraw Black Forge is built to supply an army and could be of invaluable use to the Navarre if their assembly encouraged them to support it. The Navarre could call on the local artisans in the area, many of whom have small supplies of mithril of their own, to help equip the army. They would need to be paid, of course, but the nation could choose to give them significant supplies of welt silver, orichalcum, green iron, tempest jade, beggar's lie, and iridescent gloaming in exchange for the mithril they need. The army will require 200 wains of mithril and 75 thrones, but the Navarre could substitute 40 ingots or measures of the artisan materials mentioned for each wain of mithril. The total amount of resources used would decrease the costs accordingly, so if a total of 80 ingots of green iron, tempest jade, and welt silver were supplied, then it would need 2 wains less mithril. Of course, scraping together a lot of resources will not be easy, but it would mean every member of the nation could try to contribute. Acquiring an entire wain of mithril is expensive, but getting a measure of beggar's lie is something almost everyone should be able to help with. If the Navarre got the help of their immediate neighbours, they could replace even more of the much-needed mithril with base resources. The Imperial Orcs could use a mandate to ask the Ethengraw to help. The virtuous build up their fellows. We send named priest with 10 liao to encourage the Ethengraw to put the Black Forge to work raising a new Navarre army to fight the Valorn. Let us prepare for war together. Synod Mandate, Imperial Orc Assembly. If this mandate is enacted, then Imperial Orc armies will not be able to take the Forge Hammers order until the new Navarre army is complete. Instead of providing vital support for the Imperial Orc armies, the Ethengraw will use their forges to help the Navarre raise an army in Hinia. This will help them use their materials more effectively, substituting 1 wain of mithril for each 36 resources provided. Wintermark could also use a mandate to ask the artisans at Runegrot to help. 3 tiers entwined. We send named priest with 10 liao to encourage the artisans of Runegrot to put their skills to work raising a new Navarre army to fight the Valorn. Let us fight together as one. Synod Mandate, Wintermark Assembly. If this mandate is enacted, then the Keeper of the Runegrot will not be able to forge new artisan items until the new Navarre army is complete. The artisans who work there would focus all their efforts on producing good quality weapons for the new Navarre army. Like the Black Forge, this would enable the Navarre to use their materials more effectively, substituting 1 wain of mithril for each 36 resources provided. If both mandates are enacted, the Navarre could substitute resources for Mithril at a rate of up to 33 resources for each wain. Therin. Therin has been invaded by the Druge, but the attackers are already on the back foot, with Imperial armies pushing them back. The territory includes Peakedge Stead, which is renowned as one of the Empire's premier locations for the study of herb lore and healing. An army raised here will include significant numbers of skilled herbalists in their ranks. The territory is still home to some great forest orcs, and many more have returned to their traditional homes in Peytart, which borders Therin. The Navarre have sworn a solemn and binding oath, a terrible geas that would take the very breath from their body and cause their tattoos to twine and bleed if they ever broke it, promising to protect the great forest orcs as if they were family. This has done a great deal to reassure their allies that the Empire will not turn on them, now that they have disposed of the Vendari and the Montanians. If the Navarre chose to raise an army in Therin, they could count on the support of the great forest orcs, who are deeply in their debt. These people are the masters of working weirwood. The Empire has seen their skills with growing, harvesting and shaping the precious wood, but the Navarre's allies are also skilled at making weapons of war with it. Any Navarre army raised in Therin in the next 2 years could draw on the skills and experience of the great forest orcs to substitute weirwood for mithril on a 1-to-1 basis. The army would be equipped with wooden shields, bow and arrows and spears, and would make use of armour fashioned from the tough carapace of the vicious creatures that live in Therin. Miin. Miin is the heart of the Navarre nation, the only territory that is clear of the Valorn infestation. With the corruption of the Spring Realm gone, the Navarre have created a land of golden woodlands with beautiful glades, open steadings with rich fields all surrounding the beautiful city of Therin. It is a shining example of what all the Navarre territories can become once the Valorn is finally defeated. There is an almost mystical air to the woods and open spaces of Miin. The Navarre are careful not to damage any of the Terunial ruins, giving the panorama a slightly eerie quality despite its otherwise pastoral beauty. It is also home to many Vates, and is the location of the Thorned Rose, a school dedicated to teaching Vates what it means to use magic responsibly. Any army raised in Miin is bound to include a large number of Vates and other magicians in its ranks. The presence of so many Vates may explain why heralds of various Eternals are more often seen here than in other Navarre territories. 5, in particular, have taken an interest in the Navarre's declaration of war on the Valorn. Each is eager to see this monstrosity defeated, for reasons of their own. The Navarre could ask one of these 5 to provide assistance and support for the new army. Igran. Lord Rain despises the Valorn for the ruin and destruction it spreads. Though the Cupbearer loathes violence against living beings, they are eager to see the Valorn cleansed from the world. Igran provides boons of healing and purification which could be invaluable against the Valorn. Hlofir. The Quiet One is under enmity following a conflict between the Rot Lord and the Highborn. However, he is known to be an implacable enemy of the Valorn and eagerly seeks its end. The Great Fungus provides boons that encourage decomposition or destroy undead and unliving corpses, which could prove useful against the Valorn spawn husks. Prospero. The Golden Prince's heralds are rare in Miin, but they claim that the Prince of Ties takes a special interest in Therin and considers themselves to be a patron of the city. If such is true, then the claim predates any living mortal's memory. Threadweaver provides boons that promote influence and wealth of the kind popular with brokers. It is not clear how this would help against the Valorn, but Golden Spider's heralds claim that the Valorn's real enemy is civilization itself, which is Threadweaver's domain. Kayla. The Black Dog is rarely thought of as a natural ally of the Navarre, but the decision to try and end the Valorn once and for all has caught the interest of the Sorrowful One. She rarely offers help proactively, but her heralds have made it clear that the Queen of Silence would look favourably on a request for aid. The Lady of Oblivion offers boons that bring death and a surcease of pain and suffering. Our Halogen. The Spider King enjoys a close relationship with the Navarre and has offered to aid them in the past. His heralds are clear that he would do so again, but the Navarre would need to build the fane that Sharp Fangs desires first. The Spider King offers boons that are violent, helping predators to poison and slaughter the weak. Venom, in particular, is an invaluable weapon against the Valorn. To negotiate for the aid of any one of these Eternals, the Navarre would have to use a full plenipotentiary, formally asking for the Eternals' aid. If that happened, it would be the only matter the Eternal would discuss. It would be very unwise to try to obtain the assistance of more than one Eternal with the new army. Going forwards. To begin the war against the Valorn, the Empire must use the Dance of Navarre and Thorn to complete the network of Trods so that they connect all of the 7 remaining Valorn hearts. The 3 in the Empire are already connected to the network, as is the heart in Liathavan and the one in Skuld in the Thule lands. That leaves just 2, the heart in the Sarangrave and the biggest one of them all, in Vizakuma in Axos. That means the Navarre just have to connect Vizakuma and the Sarangrave while ensuring that no territories Trods are lost, and the final war will begin. To link a Valorn heart to the network, the ritual must be performed at a spring regio in a region that contains the Valorn. That will present some huge challenges that will not be easily overcome. The Navarre will almost certainly need the help of all their allies to link these 2 territories to the network. The Sarangrave is under the control of the Druge, who are unlikely to cooperate with any attempt to activate the Valorn. The heart is located in the ruined Terunial city Biantel Dol, surrounded by wards designed to constrain it. Simply finding a suitable regio will be a challenge, but an obvious option would be to send a scouting army into the Sarangrave with orders to locate a suitable spring regio. The quiet steppe would have been perfect for this, but the blessing of our Halogen came at a price, and such things are now beyond them. The only Imperial armies capable of locating a regio in the Sarangrave are the 7th Wave, the Narwhal's Spear and the Wolves of War. If any of these armies entered the territory with orders to gather intelligence or seek the foe, and with explicit instruction from the general to locate a spring regio, then the Vates are certain it would create an opportunity for the heroes of Anvil to go through the Sentinel Gate to that location, as long as the army was still fighting in the territory, of course. Putting the Trods in the Sarangrave may not be enough. The Druge are familiar with them and understand what they are and what they do. Once they realise the danger they present, they are more than likely to attempt to take them down. The Empire will need to find a way to stop them doing that, or the whole thing will be for naught. Vizakuma in Axos is even more challenging. Besides the sheer size of this Valorn heart, the Empire does not possess maps that show a clear route to the territory. It might be possible to reach Vizakuma from Tsark, Scaura, or the Sarangrave, but there may be Axu territories between the Empire and the Valorn heart. Even if the Empire can find a way to push the Trod network into one of those places, then they will still need to find a way to convince the Axu to allow them to reach Vizakuma. Diplomacy is the obvious choice, but it will be difficult. Axos is not on good terms with the Empire following recent events. In theory, they are allies in the Liberty Pact. In practice, the small nation continues to nurture a bitter grudge, grousing over the failure of their alliance with the Grendel slavers. Relations are improving, but slowly. A bigger problem even than the current poor state of relations is that the Axu would almost certainly be completely overwhelmed by the Valorn if it emerges from Vizakuma. The military capacity of the Axu is unknown, but they are believed to have no more than a handful of armies. If the Valorn of Vizakuma is connected and the Trod network completed, then the ambitions of Nikitis Aksu, the yearnings towards religious unity, the ancient rivalries of the citadels, 1,000 years or more of Aksu history, none of this will matter. Without vast military aid, it is likely that Axos would fight a short, bloody and losing battle against the Valorn. It is hard to be sure how long it would take, but within a year, maybe 2, the people of the citadels would be extinguished. Given that brutal reality, any diplomatic outreach will be fraught with difficulty. It is clear from Ilark Maxtius's communications and everything that the civil service has been able to discover from within Axos that the Aksu have no idea about any of this. If they are informed of what will happen, then convincing them to allow it will become impossible. But if the Empire connect the network without telling them, then they will certainly be destroyed. Whatever path is chosen, the ambassador will need to tread it carefully if they have any hope of persuading the Aksu to support the effort. Shoulder to shoulder. At the same time the Navarre were making their fateful decision, the matter of the war against the Valorn was discussed in many other nations, and several national assemblies proposed statements of principle regarding the outcome. Details of these statements and their outcome are found in the Synod Speaks, Wind of Fortune.